Hello and welcome to another video game review. This is going to be the second one I'm doing on this channel, and I hope you all enjoy. This one is going to be focused around Metro 2033, the original game, not Redux. I don't own Redux, but I was lucky enough to still own 2033, the original, on Steam. And even though there's no store page for it anymore, it seems like you can still download it. So good job, Steam, there. Thank you for continuing to remain consumer friendly. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start kicking it off and start reviewing the game. I'm going to be going over the 5 points I went over in my previous review video, so if you haven't watched my New World one, highly recommend it. Not the game, the video. So we're going to have the 5 categories being 1, mechanics and innovation. Number 2 is video and audio aesthetics. Number 3 is longevity and replayability. Number 4 is it memorable? And number 5 is cost to enjoyment factor. So to iterate, again, as previously stated in my last video, if it scores 3 out of the 5 categories, then it will get my recommendation as a game that I recommend playing. And so without further ado, we're going to kick it off into mechanics and innovation here, right? So this category is one I struggled a lot with for this game because I really wanted to give it the point. However, as some viewers may know, Metro 2033 had a re-release sort of called Redux, where they went through and did some more updates to the game and everything. Well, unfortunately, they didn't go back through and fix everything in the original Metro game. One of those was this nice little hole in the library that if you're a PC gamer, right, and your FPS is too high because the game's older now, right, you can't get through. You have to go through and do some shenanigans to try and get through it. If you watch my gameplay series, you'll see exactly what I was talking about. I dealt with it for a while. Finally figured out how to get through it, moved on. Once I got through there, most of the game was pretty stable. But, I mean, it loses the point because of that. It was so close, though. Next up, we have visual and audio aesthetics. This category I am giving the game a point in. So for those of you who have played these games, you know that visually and the visuals and the audio that they pump into the Metro series is absolutely phenomenal. If you've never played one before and you go in for whatever reason you still have like the original Metro game, maybe you have it on like Xbox or something, right? And you go back there and play it, you'll notice right away the care and detail they put into the Metro, to the overworld, and all this, and the way it just creates that the way it creates the game immersion is top notch, and many game studios I feel have tried to recreate it since. And I don't think they did the best of jobs. I think Metro really nailed it, and they did a fantastic job on their first try. Next up is longevity and replayability. It's a story-based game, and it doesn't have a lot of options you can do. So while the storytelling is good, and everything they kind of go through in the game is really solid, there's not a whole lot there to replay for, unfortunately, when it comes to Metro 2033. If you would play through Metro once and you want to do it again, I'd probably actually recommend playing through Redux. That way you can really experience the differences in the game. The memorable category. This is one area I'm going to give it a point in. Metro's world design and the way they implement everything is so well done and so far outside of the genre of first-person shooters for the time it was released that people still remember it to this day. People in my generation who grew up and played PS3 and Xbox 360 in that era when Metro really came out and really shined remember the game. Unfortunately, no one ever really told me why it was such a great game because, like, you hear the overall premise of, like, oh, you're set in the metros of like, old Russia after the bombs fell and everything's all destroyed. It doesn't sound that appealing. No one really goes into, like, no, it's that you're up against, like, creatures you understand nothing about. And you've got to go on a quest to places you know nothing about. This game puts you in a lot of, like, survival first situations. This is not one of those games that gives you all the information and everything so you make informed decisions or, just intentionally kind of like leaves you on the go. You're from the aspect of a survivor, and that sticks in your head a little bit. One other thing I want to point out in this category that I think Metro 2033 did in that era, and I think several other games kind of tried to do too, but really fell out of favor because people wanted to go away from loading screens as much as possible. People don't like loading screens. But one of the things that kind of like got stuck in my mind as I played through Metro was your character's thoughts during the loading screens. So in Metro 2033, whenever you go into a loading screen, whenever you go into your next zone, you would hear like a monologue in RTM's head of like what his thoughts are or what's going on. It reminds you that you're playing RTM. You're not yourself trying to roleplay in this world. You're playing a character who's got to survive. And that stands out. That's not something many games try and replicate even today. Now we get into our last category, and that's cost to enjoyment. This category can be tricky because depending on the game type and the game genre, it can be really hard to be like, yeah, this game gets it or not, right? So like live service games I generally value a little bit differently than like story-based games. Metro 2033 does not have like a first-person shooter like kind of PvP mode or anything like that. It's not like Call of Duty where like you have like a short 8-hour story and then you go, or sorry, 4-hour story now. Some people I've heard beat them even quicker than that. And then you go and play the multiplayer, and that's what you do for the rest of the game time, right? This isn't like that. This is just a story game. And so because of that, there has to be like a level of... You gotta approach it like that, right? So like if you're talking about like any other story game, you typically think 40 hours gameplay, right? Metro is not that long. It is definitely of the era of when first-person shooter storylines started getting shorter. But it is still about a 6 to 8 hour long game. So the question is it worth the money? Does it have that cost to enjoyment factor that we all look for, right? If you catch it on sale, it's an absolute thumbs up here, man. Like I'm telling you, on sale the game is all. I personally would pay full price for this game. Okay? Like I enjoyed it that much. Like the level of enjoyment I got out of each hour of gameplay was top notch. And I left the game wanting more. That's the other thing is I can't wait to play part 2. Like I've got some other stuff that's probably going to come in between, but like I can't wait to get to part 2 because I've got so many questions that are just completely unanswered. And it's got me hooked. Part 1 was the hook. You pay for a hook, and they do a real good job of it. Now, at about 8 hours of gameplay, okay, because I spent 10 hours, mind you, I probably spent like 2 hours on the stupid hole. Not the best value for a game, but what you're getting is something that you will remember. Okay, and that's like the difference. New World, I didn't give it a point in this category because I felt like $70 for an MMO that you're going to replay a lot is expensive because you can keep paying into it. If there was any question on that, like versus this, it's because on MMOs you can keep paying into them. This game's one purchase. It's like a really good book, is how I will put it. It might be a shorter book, but in like 5-7 years' time, if you forget about it and you come back and replay it, you're going to get hit with all the nostalgia and all the feels all over again. Highly recommend. With all this being said, I give Metro 2033 a solid 3 out of 5. Okay. I almost gave it a 4 out of 5. Came real close there, but I'm giving it a 3, which gives it a solid recommendation for me. The Metro 2033 game, I'm not even counting Redux, like, because I haven't played Redux. But the original game is solid. Okay? It's worth the experience. And if you're a newer gamer and you somehow end up with like an old Xbox 360 or a PlayStation or something, and you see this game at your local GameStop, pick it up. Give it a try. It aged very well. The graphics are pretty good, even for its era. Like, and for PC gamers, this is like a 7-8 gigabyte sized game. In the world of 100 gigabyte games, this thing is tiny. The only trade-off is you get some load screens. It's great. It's a great value. Go for it. I want to leave this video with some final thoughts. For those of you that are kind of in my generation or younger, right, that are big in gaming, don't hesitate to go back and play older games. Like, this isn't even like that old compared to like others, but like a really well built game will age well. And this game has a good story and great thought provoking that goes into it. It is a labor of love, and I think every gamer should go and at least try it. Maybe it's not your cup of tea, maybe you don't like story shooters, I don't know. But that is your decision to make, and I think it's one that you should at least go and explore. You know, well, that's where I'm going to wrap up this review. I hope everyone found something meaningful in this video, and I honestly do hope you go back and give this game a playthrough. It's good. And if you already own it and it's been years since you've played it last, take yourself on memory lane. Remind yourself that when a game is created with love and care, it can be good and it can be a solid experience. It doesn't have to be one of these broken Goliaths that sometimes get pumped out and need like 300 updates just to be playable.